Woo. Alrighty, I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much. That is just so
Rock and
nice of
roll.
you. Yeah, rock and roll. Absolutely. Paige Alcoholic, and so grateful to be here with you guys today. And sometimes when I do talks, I don't like to do, probably because of some undiagnosed ADHD, I like to do the same thing over and over again. And I was just kind of asking, like, what am I supposed to talk about? And one of the things that just kind of kept being really loud was grace, the topic of grace. And what's interesting about grace, now bear with me if you're here like, girl, is she going to get all religious? Nah, nah, but I am going to talk about God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe. But when we talk about grace, the reason I think part of why it was calling to me so loudly today was, man, I don't know about you, but when I got here, I needed grace and I had no idea. You see, I don't know about you, but when I got here, I had burned most of those bridges. I actually used to have an ex-boyfriend, and this should have been a red flag. Didn't pick up on it, but he would always say, I don't burn bridges, I blow them up. I see the flag was red. I see that now. Did not then. I'm like, is that a chartreuse? I'm going closer. No, burnt that to the ground. But I don't know about you. I had burnt my life to the ground. And man, I was in the grips of a hopeless, progressive, terminal, fatal illness, and I did not even know what was wrong with me. And I'm sure not you guys, but when I showed up to AA, I was wrapped up in the bondage of self. Not you guys came here as a delight and got even more delightful, but when I got here, man, I was in need of grace. And what is interesting about that word grace is, man, grace is not something I earn or something that I deserve. Man, thank God I didn't get what I deserve. You guys know what I'm saying? Not you guys. You guys deserve the best and I love you the most. But my experiences. I come to Alcoholics Anonymous under the lash of an illness I do not know that I have. I am suffering pain and humiliation and degradation, and yet there are these walls and these hackles that rise up inside of me that no, I don't got to do what you do. I'm not like you, and I'm fighting the process of this thing. But what's important for me to understand is that I am sober today, but for the grace of a loving power that I did not know and I did not believe in, and I sure as heck did not like, and I thought wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. And when I talk about grace, what I mean is I did not earn sobriety. I did not deserve sobriety. I did not become worthy of sobriety any more than anyone that is out there dying of this illness, or any less than anyone that is in this room. What happened to me is I got beaten into a state of reasonableness where I became open to another way. And I took a course of action that is available to each and every one of us. And I received that which I did not earn. It was a gift. It was grace. Now, first, before we really dive into this talking about grace, man, I got to explain why I needed it so bad. I got to explain how I got to that place where I could even be open to it. Now, you see, I don't know about you guys, but for an alcoholic like me, and actually I've been talking about this a little bit lately, before I ever took a drink, I was thirsty. Do you guys know what I mean? Before I ever took a drink, I was thirsty. It is not appropriate to give a kindergartner Jack Daniels, but I'm just saying I needed something to take the edge off, because tying my shoes, it was a little too much. Now, some of you guys might relate, some of you maybe don't. But what's important to know is what I'm talking about here is not diagnostic of this illness. I can't diagnose alcoholism off needing a drink, in kindergarten, or oh man, I was thirsty in the third grade. Let me tell you, I needed something then. Again, not an appropriate solution, but that's not diagnostic, but it is helpful for me to explain in my own experience that I needed something. My entire life, I was looking for something. And I believe it is actually Carl Jung who gave us knowledge of what our solution is in Alcoholics Anonymous. Spoilers. Just going to spoil the end. Our solution in Alcoholics Anonymous, it is a spiritual awakening. And it was Carl Jung who gave us knowledge that that is what the alcoholics need. And there was this famous letter exchange between Bill Wilson and Carl Jung, and I believe it's in that letter. Some history people can correct me if they want. It's up to them. I can be stopped. I can be stopped quite easily. But in that letter, he said the alcoholic's quest is a quest for spirituality. Spirita con spiritum. What I am after is spirituality, but I did not know it. I was after, see, I don't know about you, but like I was in vitro. This is maybe a little dramatic, but I was in vitro and I was experiencing a conscious sense of separateness from God. You know, I genuinely, my mom talks about how she would see, I had a twin brother. He was all over the place. Still have him. And I was hanging on to the umbilical cord, and then like he got out, and then I'm like, I could just use 5 minutes of quiet, you know? So I was hanging on. I'm not ready. It's too much out there. You know what I mean? That was how this little alcoholic showed up to the world. That does not make me alcoholic, but you can tell that how I showed up to life was perfect, fertile soil for me to seek something. I needed something. I needed anything. I was thirsty. And I'll be honest with you guys. I'm a relief-seeking missile. You know what I mean? I am after relief. And I'll point some out. Some of you guys are not, and some of you guys know what's up. That's an alcoholic. I live by one rule. And that is, if it feels good, do it. Do all of it. Do so much of it that it burns my life to the ground. Do it until I've ruined absolutely everything. Do it till that's all I do. The exception to that rule of it feels good, do it, is step work. For some reason, I show up to the steps and I'm like, hold on, let me take my time. I want to take it easy. Never took it easy in my life with anything before. But this is when I want to lazy Susan it. You know what I mean? I can't lazy Susan this. I gotta difficult Karen difficult this. I am as surprised as you that I said that. I don't know what I'm going to say most of the time. And so here's my experience. I was always looking for relief. I was always looking for release. And then I found a drink. And man, I don't know about you, but for somebody like me, I found what I was looking for. See, I take a drink and I experience, you guys know? It's like my shoulders, they fall. My skin fits. My stomach that was twisted up in knots, it begins to untwist. Some of the people here, you guys know when I talk about the twisties and resisties. I get lackadaisical and untwisty. I didn't think of a rhyme, so it didn't rhyme. It would have been more clever if it did, but it didn't. So we get what we get. We don't get upset. Alrighty. But I take a drink and it was everything that I was looking for. I find alcohol and I find my solution for life, man. And that's what I need. But if you're like me, you know that there's something that happens. Now, for me, it happened almost at the very beginning. It happened right away. For some of us, it takes a little bit longer. For some of us, we drink our way into it. But for me, almost immediately, what would happen is I would take a drink. I would experience that. That little switch would go off in the back of my head. Click. And I need more. And wouldn't you know it, the more that I drink, the louder that more gets. And I talk about the physical allergy in this way. I take a drink and that drink demands a second. And that second insists on 4. And that 4th drink will not relent until I've had 8. And the 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. You see, what happens to me is I take a drink and I get thirstier. And if you're wondering, that is abnormal. The reason I talk about that is because that doesn't ever happen to non-alcoholics. They have an alcoholic beverage and watch the sports. And that's it. Do you know what I mean? They're the sort of people that'll have a glass of wine in the bathtub. Like, what? That's a whole lot of effort. That's more work. You know what I mean? But that's not my experience. And also, if you're like, girl, are you sure it is abnormal? Like, are you sure? Well, if we're unsure, I want to point something out. That thing inside of me where I take a drink and I get thirstier, That doesn't happen to me with any other beverage. Never once have I start my mornings. I start my mornings with an Earl Grey tea. Well, I started with prayer, I started with meditation, but I started with a cup of Earl Grey tea. It's because my stomach stopped handling coffee a couple years ago. And I only say that because I want you to feel bad for me. Because I'll promise you, Earl Grey is not the same. But I have a cup of Earl Grey tea. But not once in my life have I ever gone on a 3-day Earl Grey tea bender. It's just never happened. Do you know what I mean? I've never chugged back all the Earl Grey tea in the house and been scrounging through the pantry and found some chamomile and ripped it open and snorted it because it's got to be the same. You know what I mean? I just have a glass of tea. You know what I mean? Just a good old mug of tea. And so it is safe to say that the reaction that I have to alcohol is abnormal. Now, that by itself is not a predicament that requires grace. Because I clearly, based on the coffee situation, I also have a delicate stomach. Well, it's not delicate because, it really ruins the rest of my day. So it's not like, ooh, it's like, oh no, you're just going to be miserable. That sort of stomach. And so you know what happens is when my stomach was like, coffee in? No, thanks. We'd like you to vomit that up. I was like, that is unpleasant. Bear with me with this. I shall discontinue my consumption of coffee and switch to tea. I know that here at We Know Only a Little, you guys are lovely, refined, classy folk who would never know what it's like to find themselves in the spiritual prayer position at 3 a.m. where we're praying to the porcelain gods, vomiting everything we drank and saying, please, God, make it stop. I'll never do this again. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just want to put that in context. So the place that I need grace is not really in terms of the physical allergy. Where do I need grace? And you see, what happens to me, and if we're hanging out on a Saturday, it probably happens to you. What happens to me is because of that physical allergy, once I start to drink, man, I cross lines in the sand I never wanted to cross. I do things that I never wanted to do. I break hearts that meant everything to me. I betray trust that was so vitally important to me. I lose hopes and dreams and goals and dignities. My shoes were long gone, but I lose everything. And I scrape myself up off the bathroom floor. See, if you're like, I don't know if I can pray. Grace, I'm not really interested in spirituality. I had no problem praying at 3 a.m. Do you know what I mean? No problems doing it then. But I scrape myself off the bathroom floor. And I would say, I'm never going to drink again. And I would say that in the spiritual prayer position at 3 a.m. But I would also say it the morning after. When the sickness and the guilt and the shame and the remorse and the self-hatred was on me. I couldn't stand who I was. I couldn't stand who I had become. Man, I don't know about you. I couldn't look myself in the mirror. I hated myself with a vitriol that is unparalleled. I did not want to do it anymore. I did not want to break those hearts. I did not want to hurt the people that I hurt. I didn't want to do it again. And I would find that a day, a week, a month, several months down the line, I would do it again. I would do it again. And this is where I need that grace. You see, what happens to me is when I am as sober as I am today, but my illness is untreated, I get a thought. And that thought happens in my mind. And you see, that thought is a lie. It's an absolute lie, but I believe it. And that lie looks like this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll just go out for 3 drinks. My problem is I was drinking with a bunch of Canadians, but we're in the good old US of A. There's no alcoholics in America. I was going to say there's no Americans. There's Americans. There's no alcoholics that are Americans. Those things, you put those 2 letters together, you get AA. Nobody there needs AA. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, right? It looks like if you're feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get drunk too. It looks like if you're going through what I was going through, you'd have to take a drink too. It looks like I hate myself. I hate my life. I'm going to kill myself anyways. So why don't I get drunk? It looks like a thought that is on me all day that says, take a drink, 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 until what little like willpower I could muster gets eroded and I find a drink in my hand. But it's important to know that I get a case of the suddenlies, where I'm out there living my life. I got a drink in my hand and I do not know how it happened. And that is where I need God's grace, because I find myself doing it again and again and again against my will. And I don't know about you, but I would try to put things between me, and that sure as heck didn't work. And I would try to put things between me and that first drink. Now, I did not try everything. But here's my experience. Everything that I tried failed. Everything that I tried failed. I tried that relationship, Mr. Blow Up the Bridge. You'll be shocked to know that it ended. He also would regularly refer to me as his future ex, which I did take umbrage with, but how could I fault the guy? He was right, Again, the flags are red. I'm like, oh no, it means green. It means red means go. Thank you. But I would get into that relationship. Then I would get out of that relationship. Good call. Then I would get back into that relationship. Not good call. Do you know what I'm saying? Oh, I can change him. Nope. You know what I mean? And I would try that. I tried doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists. I tried going to the gym. I tried moving. I had some people invite me to church a couple times. Man, I tried everything that I could think of. I tried everything that I thought I was qualified for. And nothing worked. And man, this is where I need the grace of God. Because if we can look back in our lives and we can see all the things that we have tried to control our drinking, and more importantly than that, to stay sober, and we have found that it does not work, man, I can tell you, I was up against an illness over which human power is not sufficient. And human power is not sufficient for me. But it's also important that I be honest about my experience. And my experience is I could get a couple months, or I could do a little bit of work in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I could stave off that first drink for a while. But you know what would start to come up and pop up? Is I would start to get that little thought that says, man, I don't need to be here anymore. And I would get that suicidal ideation, and it would get loud, and it would get loud. And it would get loud. Now, I'm not telling anyone about this, because I learned a long time ago, if I start talking about that, I end up in a grippy sock vacation. It'll surprise you to know that I met that gentleman while I was on a pass from the psych ward. He was passed out under a bridge. I mean, if you have ever found true love locked in an institution, girl, ooh, Dad, ooh, we had to run some inventory on that, haven't we? It's bad. Those are some alcoholic enhancers. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we talk about the alcoholic enhancers being the non-conference approved drugs. But let me tell you, relationships can really be those alcoholic enhancers. Ooh, I will just take my life and I will burn it to embers by throwing a partner in the mix. Delightful. It's a tornado. It's two tornadoes. It's a sharknado. It's science. Sharknado. I know. You know when I said I felt called to do a talk on the power of grace? I didn't think Sharknado would be making a presence in the talk. I apologize profusely. Alrighty. But I would try all these things to stay sober, and none of them were sufficient. And you see, what happened for me is I had what I like to call a step one experience. And I need a step one experience. And my step one experience, sometimes we talk about step one in the rooms, is this idea that I can never, ever safely drink again. And that's a small part of step one, but that's not really what step one is about. For me, what I found step one to be about is that step one is that I can never, ever, ever safely drink again, and I will. That first drink is inevitable and it is imminent, which means it's coming way faster than I think it will. It's hitting sooner than I think it will. And I've got nothing I've got nothing that I can put. No barricades, no battlements, no defenses. There is nothing I can put to stop the incoming tide of my alcoholism. That first drink, that mental obsession, I've got nothing. And if nothing works, if I am one of those who is beyond human power, what I need is grace. And actually, we're not really doing a big book bounce around. You're just getting a lens into the how my brain works with ADHD. I don't have it. It's weird that you think I do. I am so good at keeping on task and not going on tangents. I'm basically known for it. Anywho, page 24, bottom of 24. Don't worry about it. It talks about these stark and ugly facts. Now, the stark and ugly facts that we're talking about is that if I have the physical allergy and I have the mental obsession, what that means is I am beyond human aid. Human power is not enough to keep me sober. And that if I do not find some sort of solution, some sort of answer that is beyond human aid, the best I've got is lock me up in a permanent grippy sock vacation. Do you know what I'm saying? Permanently locked up, or I will die of this illness. That's what I'm up against. It says these stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions, thousands upon millions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop but cannot. And that's what I need, is I need the grace of God, nothing less. And here's what this looks like. Again, if you're like, girl, I'm not open to the word grace, not open to the word God, I feel you, I hear you, I'll talk about that and my experience with that in a moment. But what are we talking about? Nothing less than a spiritual experience that I grow and develop over time, and I'm going to drink again. That is the predicament. And so the grace is that it's hopeless. And keep in mind, wasn't the worst drunk that was out there, but I was hopeless. A hopeless alcoholic like me is given a solution, is given a way out. And that's what we have in Alcoholics Anonymous. There is a solution, there is a way out. And you know the most incredible thing about it is I don't have to like the solution. I don't. Did you know the solution does not care about my opinions of the solution? Do you know what I mean? God, higher power, creator, is not worried about what I think, nor about what I feel, what my opinions, my prejudices, my old ideas. The only thing that matters for an alcoholic of my type is what I do, the actions that I take to allow this power to work in my life. Now, if you're like me, I came here with a lot of old ideas. I came here with a lot of prejudices. I came here with a lot of, I'm different. I'm not like you. I came here with a whole lot of, man, if there is a God, why is there pain and why is there suffering? And I would get trapped up in the why. I would also get trapped up in this idea that I need to define or comprehend or understand this power, which is God, which is not something that is possible for me to do. The word understand, as it is defined in mine, I don't have the fancy, unofficial, official 1930s. I just have a dictionary over here from the 1930s because I have fun at parties. Woo! You just invite me over. I'm going to go on a William James tangent. Woo! You know. Just a delight. Don't worry, there'll be a different speaker next week. But the truth is, in my 1930s dictionary, the word understand means to know through experience. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to define this power in my mind. I'm here to have an experience with this power. Now, at the second step, agnostic, without knowledge, without experience of this power, man, I don't know this thing. And you see, when I got here, I was stuck in the why. If there is a God, why? If there is a God, you know, why did I go through what I was going through? Why did I experience what I was experiencing? You know, why did some of the things that happened to me before I picked up a drink? Why did the things that happened to me when I was living the life of an alcoholic happen to me? Why did some of the things that happened to me, some incredibly painful things, some of the most painful things, not all of them, but some of the most painful things that happened to me in my life happened in sobriety? Why did those happen to me? And I'll tell you my experience with why. My experience with why is a lot like being lost in the desert. And if you guys can tell, I do not have a complexion that is doing well in direct sunlight. I'm going to be quite sunburnt quite quickly. You know what I'm saying? But imagine I am lost in the desert and I'm going around in circles and the sun is barreling down on me and ooh, she's sunburnt. Ooh, it's not good. Do you got some aloe vera gel? Because she is red. You know what I mean? Like, that's gonna blister and peel, you know? And I'm running out of food and I'm running out of water. And I find that I'm going in circles and there's no way out. And you see, the night starts to settle in and the dusk begins to emerge. The sun begins to set. And you think about the thing about the desert, as hot as it is during the day is as cold as it is during the night. And the step one experience is to realize that long night is settling in. That long night is coming and I got nothing. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I cannot survive that long night. And by some miracle of miracles, in that moment I am given a map. And the map is this book, Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the map. And in that moment, with the dusk settling in, and the hopelessness and the futility of my life as I had been living it, it is imperative that I use this map to get my butt out of the desert than to pontificate on how I got there in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Because some of you that know, you know, girl, those tires are not doing well in sand. How did you get there? I'm as surprised as you. But I have a way out. And that is grace. I don't want to share with you my experience because if you're like me, that's not always a sufficient answer. So let me tell you what my experience is with why. Why am I an alcoholic? It has nothing to do, for me, it has nothing to do with my family of origin, has nothing to do with, my childhood. It has nothing to do with some of the things that I went through. And this is just my experience. It has nothing to do with being a Canadian and not getting enough vitamin D. I went from one extreme to another, too much sun, not enough sun. But it has nothing to do with any of that. The reason I'm an alcoholic and also the reason some of those things happened to me, I began to answer as I worked the steps. I began to look at some of those things in step 4. I began to share some of those painful things that had happened, and even some of the things that I had done in step 5, and I began to feel like I was not so alone. I had that experience where I had the quiet hour. I did 6 and 7. I began to make amends. And not necessarily for things that happened to me as a child, but I began to make amends. And that guilt and that shame began to fall from me. But it really was when I began to sit down with other alcoholics that I got the answer to why. Why I'm an alcoholic. Why those things happened. Why, if there was a loving God, did I experience some of the things that I have experienced. And the reason is when I sit down with another alcoholic, Zoom screen to Zoom screen, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, that's when I get the answer to my why. Because I get to say, yes, me too. Yes, me too, I drank like that. Yes, me too. Praying to the porcelain god. Yes, me too. Yes, me too. I know what it is like to feel that way. Yes, me too. I know what it is like to do those things. Yes, me too. I know what it is like to burn my life to the ground, only to go back to it again and again and again. Yes, me too. I went through that. Yes, me too. I know that grief. I know that pain. I know that suffering. Yes, me too. And this is how I got freedom from it. Let me show you how. That is the answer to my why. And if you don't have an answer to yours, what I would encourage you with love and support is to join us. Join us on the spiritual journey so that you can have an answer. Maybe it'll be the one that I have found here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you see, what I needed was grace, and I did not even know it. And one of the most incredible things about this loving, powerful God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, is that I get to access this power, regardless of what I think, of what I feel, of what I believe. I get to know this power, to build a relationship with this power. That is what I get to do. And I'm going to talk a little about the third step prayer. But you know what? Actually, screw it. We're doing it out of order because I felt some of you are not surprised. Some of you are not surprised at all. I'm going to actually do the 7th step prayer first. And will we go back to the 3rd step prayer? Who knows? I'm as shocked as you. I don't know where these go. Do you know what I mean? I just felt really called to talk about it like right then, right now. So that's what I'm doing. And in the 7th step prayer, it talks about on page 76, if you bouncing around, I didn't mean to turn this into a bounce around. So feel free to not get a book. You do you. When ready, we say something like this: my Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. And what is the most incredible thing? The first thing that that really had an experience with this prayer was this idea that I don't need to get good to get God. This is a power that is going to meet me where I'm at. This is a power that is meeting me in the depth of my pain and the suffering and the humiliation. And kind of tying it back to the 3rd step, I come to step 3. And in steps 2 and step 3, I begin to look and really dive in to that spiritual malady. Now, that spiritual malady is not diagnostic of alcoholism, but it is what we treat in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am treating that conscious sense of separateness from God. And I don't know what that looks like, or I don't know that's what that is. See, what it looks like to me, I don't think it's a conscious sense of separateness from God. I think the world's just doing things wrong and people aren't respecting me and treating me right. And I'm just feeling just a little restless, irritable, discontented. And I'm feeling the bedevilments, feeling of uselessness, self-pity, self-hatred. I'm feeling like, man, I can't make a living. I'm feeling a prey to misery and depression. And you see, I need a God that's going to meet me there. Because just as powerless as I am over taking the first drink, as powerless as I am from that conscious sense of separateness from God, that is what we're treating. And I'm treating that conscious sense of separateness from God with a conscious contact with God. That's what I'm treating it with. And that's what I need. And you see, there's this beautiful idea. It's in the Sufi tradition, but it's just a spiritual idea that, my friend Terry and I, we do a big book study on Fridays, and I love how Terry talks about this is a book of mirrors. And as we go through this book, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see my experience in this book, and I'm trying to see my experience with the illness of alcoholism. But as we take this course of action, as we take these directions, I want to talk about my experience, or see my experience with the solution, with the promises that are all over this book. But when I come to these steps, what I come to find is that the book is not simply a mirror. I am called to be a mirror. And it's just like the moon. You see, the moon by itself does not have its own light. It reflects the light of the sun. And I hope to be a vision of light. I hope to be a vision of hope. I hope to be a vision of joy, but I promise you it is not my love, my light, my joy. My hope is to simply polish the mirror that is me, to reflect the divine love of God. Man, if you would have told me that's what AA was about, I'd be like, girl, what are you on about? But you see, that mirror is always there, and that light is always there. But you see, the problem is I'm blocked. It's just a little smudged. Somebody's been brushing their teeth on it. The little teeth spray, Not you guys. You guys always clean the mirror after you brush your teeth. You guys are the best. But my mirror, it's a little, we gotta wash that mirror. And you see, I come to realize that I cannot overcome that conscious sense of separateness from God. And step 3 talks about selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. And I am driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. But what drives those things, what drives my selfishness and self-centeredness? A sense of separateness. I am not really separate from this power. It is a sense of separateness. But I've got to clear away the stuff in me that is not me, that ego, that is that bondage of self that I just get wrapped up tight in the third step and in the third step prayer. And I come to step 4. And I come to see that I'm filled with resentment, this refeeling of anger. And again, I need God's grace, because I cannot be free of that anger. I cannot be free of the refeeling of that hurt. And what I need is God to change my heart. In page 67, we have the resentment prayer, the sick man prayer. God, help me to show them the same pity, patience, and tolerance. I need to be changed. I need to see them in a new way, right? I get changed. And when I begin to find where I have made mistakes, man, a change happens in me. And the whole world begins to change. And then I come and I have a look at my fears. And wouldn't you know it, I have a look at how self-reliance has failed me. And on my power, I cannot do anything about my fears. You ever worried about how much you worry about things? Yeah, if you know, you know. You know what I mean? I'm not getting no freedom from that. And I cannot overcome that on my own power. But in fears, it talks about just to the extent that we rely on God and do as we think He would have us. Does He enable us to match calamity with serenity? And that is grace. Man, I am the creator of chaos and misery. You know, it talks about later on, avoid then the deliberate manufacture of misery, because that's how I was living my life. Man, I create the chaos. And God comes in with grace to take me to a place where I get to experience serenity. And then I have a look at my relationship conduct, my sex conduct. And you guys saw, I thought I could change the man. Do you know what I mean? That is a prime example of girl. And I kept going back. I'm like, this time will be different. I'm enough to change him. Or he'll also fix me. My love will be enough to fix the two of us. Clearly not the case. Dumpster on fire. Got a minute left. I'm probably going over. Sorry. No, she said I could. I got permission. Geraldine said I could. Off I go. That's me getting an inch and taking a mile. Or, because I'm Canadian, a centimeter and taking a kilometer. Off I go. That's my little joke about the metric system. Stay tuned for more. Why am I like this? Oh, I know why I'm like this. I do a lot of inventory. But I can't show up to relationships how I need to show up to. And it said we ask God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. And so a loving God meets me where I'm at and takes me where I need to go. And in the 5th step, what happens? In step 5, I share with God and another human being the things inside of me that are blocking me off from that power. And it talks about the word admit. And there's 2 ways to look at that word. One is a bit of a confession. I got to confess, I stole your car. I slept with your husband. I peed on your carpet. Bit of a confession, right? I'm just kidding. I would never do. It was linoleum. I would never. But some of you guys know, you closet drinkers, you know what it's like. I'm a lady, pinkies up. But another way to look at the word admit is if you get a ticket to a concert or to a football game, and on it says admit 1. And you see in that 5th step, when I'm sharing the contents of my 4th step and I'm bearing those deep dark secrets, I'm letting in God's light. And then I come to step 6 and to step 7. I take that quiet hour and I become quite aware that just as I am powerless over that first drink, as powerless as I am over the bondage itself, as powerless as I am over my resentments, my fears, my relationship conduct, man, I need God's grace because I cannot do it on my own. I cannot overcome these defects of character on my own. And this is where God meets me. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. A God that wants a relationship with me. Not in spite of the worst things I've ever done, but because of. A God that meets me in the depth of my shame, my humiliation, my pain. And deeper than that, more than just a God that wants a relationship with me. Watch this. It says, I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. It is not only a God that wants to have a relationship with me, and this is the view that I have. If it doesn't work for you, just ignore me. But also a God that wants to use me. You see, when I came in here, I felt useless and worthless. And there's a thing that happens, and this is my experience, and it happens as I go out and I make amends. As we go out and we make amends for the harms that we've caused. Man, that's when these defects fall away. Truly. But there's something that happens. I begin to see myself as I truly am. And as I continue to work these 12 steps as a way of life, there's something that cracks open in me. And what cracks open is God's grace. And I come to see true humility, that I am as worthy in this moment as I will ever be. That there is nothing that I can do to take away this inherent value and worth. And there's nothing I can do to earn it. That it was always available. And actually, let me be clear, when I really get a lens, when I really got a lens into that was when I started working with others. When I started working with silly little drunks just like me, and they would share with me the worst thing that they ever did. And they would share with me the depth of their pain and their suffering and their shame. And you know what would happen? How I saw them and how I felt about them, it would change. But not in the way that you might expect. You see, I loved them more. I loved them more. I am a fall-down failure of a human being. I'm pissing my pants drunk behind a dumpster smoking crack with a gentleman I just met. I'm calling him a gentleman because I just met him. I shouldn't pass judgment. You know what I'm saying? But that is who I am. On my own power, I can't stop myself from taking that first drink. On my own power, I can't escape from the bondage of self. On my own power, I got nothing I can do on those resentments. On my own power, I can't do nothing with my fears, my sex conduct. I can't do nothing with my defects of character. I am a fall-down failure of a human being who is desperate for God's grace. You see, I need God's grace just like I needed a drink. And if this fall-down failure of a human being feels that way about another alcoholic, imagine how the loving God that is available to us all feels about you. And the most powerful thing that happens to me is I get to help others. I get to build and deepen and cultivate a relationship with this power in 10 and 11. And I get to go and help others. I get to see beyond a shadow of a doubt their inherent worth and value and the power of God. And miracles happen. And I did not earn this life. I did not deserve this life. I did not become worthy of this life. I took a course of action that I did not like, that I did not think would help, that I did not think I could possibly ever become worthy of, and a change happened to me. And if there's anything that I can tell you, it is that I am not special. I'm a silly little drunk. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And our life, as those of us who have recovered, depend on helping you. So thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you.